Yeah, Jackie here from the LGFA, and you're all very welcome along to another chat. And we're going down memory lane yet again. I'm delighted to be joined by two stars from the West. On my top left is Claire Egan from Mayo, and down the bottom of the screen I have Lorna Joyce from Galway. Two players who just before we started recording, we were chatting about how their careers intertwine pretty much down through the years. Claire and Lorna, thanks for coming on. How are you both?
Good,
Good.
yeah. Getting through lockdown, lots of Zoom calls, and I think the same for everyone. That kind of way, trying to spending a lot of time, you know, exercising within your 5K radius, and then planning what you're going to have for dinner, and then
Yeah,
balancing work and everything at the same time.
it's
So
a bit like
yeah,
that,
just trying
isn't
to
it,
make
Claire?
the keep the best side out.
Claire, how are things? You're based in DCU. How has life changed over the last number of weeks in terms of what you do and the output and how you're communicating now?
Well, I suppose the university, I mean, we started working from home, I think once the announcement was made was March 13th. So I've been kind of working from here in Stony Batter. But the university, I mean, things have adapted pretty quickly because I work in the communications unit.
Yes.
So I think once you have Wi-Fi and once you have a phone, like you're well set up, everything has moved to Zoom and Google Hangouts. So you're all of those meetings that you would have had face to face, you're now getting used to having them online as well, which is great because prior to that I would have been very much always going face to face meetings all the time. So it's kind of good to get off with all of that technology. I know lots of people have been using it like for years without a second thought, but it's been a new facet. But yeah, it has been pretty busy because all of the comms focus as well has been on preparing the university in the initial phases of, I suppose, containment and the lockdown, then to kind of what's going to happen come the new academic term. Like DCU, there's about 17,000 students there and almost 3,000 staff. So it's like a community of about 20,000 people. So it's been fascinating from that kind of internal comms perspective, but then outwardly as well. Like there's a lot of the research community who have been really involved in kind of research and development and have focused their efforts on COVID-19 and trying to come up with solutions there for issues in it. But yeah, I think like anyone, you're trying and keep a structure as best you can, and just kind of do the best you can each day. You go through different phases. So I think with it, you do miss that kind of office interaction, definitely. But you still try and catch up with people as much as possible on WhatsApp and Zoom calls and the like.
Okay, and Dr. Lorna Joyce, you're very much at the front line. Lorna, you're based in the Oranmore Medical Centre. How are things been for you guys?
Yeah, I suppose in a lot of ways my life hasn't changed that much in that I'm still doing my regular work. But I suppose the way we're working has really changed. So I suppose, as you can imagine, like a busy practice, we're in a pretty busy area or more lots of families, big population. But obviously the footfall to the practice has really fallen. So, and we've had to adapt in how we work and how we, look after our patients because all of our over 70s are cocooning and, obviously, so it's learning a lot more about IT stuff. We've had to change everything in the way we work. Our prescription, literally, you name it, everything has been done now differently. So we've had to, I suppose, evolve as well with that. So there's been a lot more training and trying to keep up to date. Obviously, the pandemic is an evolving situation as well. So just trying to adapt day to day with managing that. And, I suppose a lot of Zoom educational meetings in the evenings as well, actually. So that's kind of keeping us busy. But like my day to day, otherwise, it's still getting up and going out every day. So it's, a lot of my family are teachers and they've all been working from home, and so it's fine. I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of barriers now. You're not, we're wearing masks and aprons and PPE, and it's kind of difficult because you're not getting the same interactions with patients. Your day-to-day meetings are a bit, they're not as easy as they were because you can't look at people's facial interactions. They can't see yours. It's definitely different. I mean, I'll be looking forward to getting back to normal whenever that will be, but yeah, we're managing well, we're coping well, and we're managing with busy life, but it's all good.
Lorna, before we kick into football chat, and given your professional expertise and the role you're fulfilling at the moment, I'd be interested in your thoughts on where we are right now in the battle against this pandemic. How are we doing? And should there be things that we should be concerned about? We hear a lot about mass gatherings that are happening again in public places. What are your own thoughts? How are we doing in the battle against COVID-19?
Yeah, well, the numbers are showing that we're doing pretty well. I mean, it's hard to get everything right. And I think, in general, I think as a country, we have really responded and people are really doing their best, but I think you'll always have, like it's difficult for everybody to keep to every rule, but I think in general, we are doing good and the numbers are showing that, the numbers are down, the number of deaths, thank God, are down. But I think, at the same time, you're cautiously moving from one phase to the next, and you've always got that lag period where you're saying, okay, people are mixing a bit more now, what will happen in the next week or two? We're questioning it just as much as the general population, and everybody's in the dark. Public health, everybody, I suppose you're trying to look at numbers worldwide, you're trying to look at what other countries are doing, and you're cautiously moving then through the weeks, through the days, hoping that it'll keep going well. But I think at the moment we are doing well. I think the only thing you want to watch for is that bit of complacency, whereby people do start to gather a bit more and think, oh yeah, it's okay. And, I think in the West, Claire, I mean, you're in Dublin, but, the numbers are a bit lower, and there hasn't been as much exposure. And I think that can definitely lead to a bit of complacency then, because you're kind of saying, oh, well, there's not too many cases here. So it's just about, I suppose, cautiously moving through the days and weeks, and trying to do your best,
And of course, we're all missing football as well, and that's the primary focus why we got you guys on, two sparring partners of old. Claire, you made your inter-county debut back in 1998, and Lorna, you made your inter-county debut in 1999, and two excellent careers. And you actually were awarded All Stars on the same year in 2005, if I'm correct in that. You were both on the same All Star team. Claire, your recollections of Lorna on the playing fields, please.
Oh, a top class forward. Like I would have, I suppose Galway and Mayo had really intense rivalry, but I mean, playing against Lorna, one of my good friends, Nuala O'Shea, who'd also be a good friend of Lorna's as well, I think they invariably ended up marking each other a lot of the time, would have been familiar with each other too. But I suppose in any kind of pre-match scenarios as well, Lorna was always marked out as one of the ones to watch, just in terms of her, I suppose, gameplay and game awareness, and the role she played as well in bringing others into the game. So, yeah, like, people throw around phrases like top class all the time, but it definitely is one that really applies in this case. And like I would have played with Lorna as well in Galway when we were in, they call it was NUI Galway, I think it's the proper term now, but I think it could have been UCG at the time as well, and there was loads of Galway girls there too. So good memories of those days. We kind of, I don't know if we, we had like at underage level, like we enjoyed a lot of success. I think over Galway with the same group of players actually that then transitioned into senior level. But I'd say for Lorna as well, a lot of the same ones who were with her at underage level would have transitioned into their senior team, which then went on, those great battles between ourselves and Galway down through the years. But yeah, good memories, some of played, and some heartbreaking ones as well, like 2004 would definitely be up there in one of them anyway, so it would.
That was a good year for Galway, Lorna, 2004, obviously.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that, I mean, like Claire and I played all through the years against each other, but I actually went to school in Mayo, so I went to school in Termacady, because my home club Clonbur is right on the border. So it was unusual for me because through my secondary school years, I was growing up with, who Claire mentioned, Nuala O'Shea, a good friend of mine, Niamh Lally, all these girls who were actually playing senior for Mayo, and I was playing junior for Galway. So like I remember, and then obviously we used to play each other in challenge games as well, and invariably I'd be marking Nuala, who was my best friend at the time. So, and I used to hate marking her because when you're marking friends and you're only a teenager, and it was but thankfully Claire was further out the field and I never really had to go near her. So that was one saving grace. But yeah, like, and then obviously underage as well, Mayo used to always have the upper hand on us. But I suppose, and as Claire said, it was all the same groups of players really playing each other. But I remember that, and Claire, I don't know if you remember this, but we played a minor final Connacht final, and I think 11 of your group of players, 10 or 11, went on to win a senior All-Irelands that year. So it must have been 99 or so.
99, yeah.
Yeah, and like we were junior with Galway at the time, and I think it gave us great hope. We had actually lost to you guys by a point in the Connacht final, and 10 of you went on then to an All-Ireland Senior. So I think we knew we had we were thereabouts, and it gave us good hope to try and get to that level. So that stands out for me actually, and it was a heartbreaking encounter because it was really close all the way. But yeah, then after that, obviously after we won the junior, we were we had lots and lots of battles then after that. 2003, 2004,
Yeah.
I suppose stand out that around those couple of years, because you were obviously the kingpins at the time and had a couple of All-Irelands at that stage.
Yeah,
that was
that
some era, wasn't it, for you, Claire? 99, 2000, contesting the final again in 01, winning it again in 02 and 03. What an incredible era. And you came into the team really young at that time as well, in around 99, 98, 99 as a teenager. So it all came at you pretty quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, like we would have been, I suppose, very unusual. I think it would be really unusual now if you said that there was going to be, let's say, if there's a 2020 or 2021 championship, that the team would be made up of 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and like a 15-year-old. Shelley Gibbons actually came on as a sub. And in 99, like I also remember seeing I think it was Monaghan and Waterford on TV, and they would have been, I remember going out doing laps, like, imagine playing against the likes of Jenny Greenan or Martina Ryan or all of them, because we'd been watching them growing up, and then to play against them as well. Usually we got hammered by them. Like I remember in 1999, we played Waterford in August in a challenge game, and they must have beaten us by 25 points. And this was prior to playing Meath then in the All-Ireland semi-final that year, which we won. But I think a lot of our success, and it goes down to, you'd see with a lot of teams nowadays, is continuity of management. Like we were very fortunate that we had a very good group there, and I suppose we tasted success very early, so then that whetted the appetite for more. But Finbar Egan and Jonathan Mullen and John Mullen that have been with us all the way through, and then later on in life, and sadly Margaret Byrne and Pat Byrne, both of whom are now deceased, like they would have been kind of the main ones during all the time kind of growing up. So we kind of, I think when I talk about 2004 and Galway beat us, that kind of was the end of an era as well for our group, because not only had we lost, like I think we lost the replay of the semi-final, and it was an extra time as well. I think it was 2 points that separated us at the end, but then Finbar Egan had stepped down at the time, and then I suppose our group, basically then we had different managers year on year after that. But yeah, looking back, those days, I think I heard Cora talking about it there a while ago. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced training like I did in that stage, from 98 and 99 onwards. Like, yeah, it was magical. Like, I don't think we appreciated the time. It's only now, years later, when you look at, I suppose, when you're in the stand now looking on, that's when you really appreciate it. Like, and that you think, yeah, I've been there, and thankfully have been fortunate enough to experience success, because a lot of people don't. They play for many, many years, and they don't really get that experience of being in Croke Park.
And Lorna, was the fact that Mayo were so so successful at the time, did that drive the Galway group that you were a part of onto new heights, because you knew you had to get up to that level to eventually get past them, which you did? Obviously winning the All-Ireland in 04, getting back to a final in 05. That was a pretty good era for Galway as well that you were part of.
Yeah, and I suppose we were gaining momentum because we were in a junior final, obviously.
02, wasn't it?
2 junior finals, and then we won the junior and progressed up to senior. And like Claire said, like we had a lot of good players come in at that time, a lot of players that still were playing up until even a couple of years ago, and a good group. And then an excellent manager, PJ Fahy, was there, Richard Bowles as the trainer, and Mick O'Connell as well. And I suppose when you're winning and you're winning junior and then you go up to senior, you first of all, you wonder, are you going to be able for it? But then, having, as I said, we had played a lot of these girls, they were a young Mayo team. We knew that we had, that we could compete. And so, yeah, I suppose it was just a matter of trying to get up to the standard. 2003, the year before we won, we had, a lot of good battles. And I remember that we actually lost to Mayo in the semi-final. So we were only one step away.
Right.
So it gave us great drive for the following year to know that like you're only one step away from getting there. So and then obviously in 2004 we played them again in a semi, and as Claire said, it went to a replay. So I mean, nothing separated us. It was really close. You know, the close teams, and I suppose we were on the way up, maybe, you know what I mean. And every team has its ways up and its ways down. So, you know, but yeah, it was it definitely drove us on watching Mayo's success, you know. And I would have grown up watching, you know, the Heffernans and all these players, and obviously the Monaghan's, Waterford players as well. But obviously being in school with some of the girls then as well, you know, was really close to me then. And, you know, and I would have known, you know, Claire and all those girls, Paul Fitzgerald, Jackie Moore, and I ended up playing club with them actually later. So they ended up joining our club, and we got to an intermediate final as well. So I had very close links to Mayo. I actually played Mayo schools growing up as well. So, yeah, and my aunt played for Mayo for years. So it made the rivalry even stronger.
Wow. There's a shared history there in many ways. Lorna, Claire, your good self. I mean, the two of you went well into the 2000s and into the 2010s, retiring more or less around the same time in 2016 from Intercounty. Claire, you, just looking back to your career and reading up a bit about you, and obviously was reporting a lot around the time when you were playing, you suffered a particularly bad injury that took a long time to get over. Can you take us back to that one, please?
Yeah, I actually suffered, well, I suffered that playing rugby. I had a very short-lived rugby career. Like I moved up, just to go back on that, like I moved to Dublin in 2008, but I would have been up and down to Mayo all the time, like with Mayo and then with Carnacon as well. So I never joined a club up here. But I kind of thought, I think the summer of 2014, I thought I might, there was a lady called Tanya Roster who was doing a lot of work with my previous company, the Camogie Association. And she had said, you know, what about taking up the rugby? So I said, yeah, okay, grand, you know, I'll give it a go. And so I went down to Blackrock, like with no, you know, I no kind of illusions about anything really, and found that, I was getting the game and I was playing and it was grand. But I mean, they would all been like kind of internationals down there and provincial players. But I went through the season, no problem, and I think I was playing on the wing at the time, and it was the AIL Division 1 finals. So we were playing, Blackrock were against Old Belvedere, and it was down in Donnybrook. And I suppose ironically, like I went through all of my Gaelic football career without ever having any injury whatsoever. I tore my ankle ligaments. But that night anyways, I remember receiving the ball. I can still see it vividly. And the option was either to kick or to run it. I think I was back on, I don't know, the goal line. That's not the right rugby term to use, but anyways, it's back on one of the lines. And I was tackled by Jenny Murphy, the Irish international, and I could just, the sensation was like my knee had twisted, had done a 360. That's the way it felt. And I remember going down head first at the time, straight onto my forehead. So obviously there was a lot of delay because they thought I'd experienced neck injury. Okay. But I initially thought that I dislocated the knee, and then when I was on the ground, I couldn't lift my leg at all. So basically, long story short, like my patella tendon had completely torn, and then my kneecap had popped up into my thigh as well. So lovely. I ended up going to Vincent's that night, and I was very lucky, like in terms of the care I got, because Gary O'Toole, the former Olympic swimmer, he was an orthopedic surgeon, so he operated on me. And just funny, like the whole GA connections, Orla Kilreevy's, I think Auntie at the time, who was an A&E, she was a theatre nurse. She was actually my theatre nurse as well when I woke up from surgery. But yeah, it was by the time I was back on my 2 feet again, and that was with one leg completely kind of disintegrated because all my muscle just went, you couldn't move it at all. It was probably the end of February. And then I had a lot of physio with it. I was going once a week probably to Dublin to a guy over in Ranelagh, ELB McCormack. I think Helena Lohan, actually, the Mayo team had spent a lot of time with him with her back. So he brought me through a whole program, and I remember telling him the first day I went in, I said, I think this must have been February, and I said to him, I have a Connacht final in July the 4th against Galway, so I need to be ready and need to be playing for that. And just interesting psychology, like he let me go along and think, yes, of course you'll be there playing on the pitch. I'm sure, like, I was lucky to even be kind of sitting in the subs bench at the time. I made it back, like that final week. There was a lot of phases I had to go through. Like there was about 8 weeks maybe of physio, just doing basic stuff, like doing a squat, really simple, back to basic kind of things. And then I spent a lot of time running on a trampoline. And then I spent a lot of time just running in straight lines for about 6 weeks until I did rejoin the Mayo panel that week. And just back amongst the group as well. But yeah, it was a very challenging time. Like, I mean, it was quite, it was a severe injury to get. And I suppose, as I said, the irony was I'd never been injured in my entire life. So when I got injured, I got quite a whammy, like, so I did. But yeah, and I think just on that injury, I suppose I spent a lot of time doing rehab as well. And I've been kind of up and down to Dublin for, God, you know, as I said, since 2008, every single weekend. So maybe in some ways as well, I think that began the transition for me for kind of, you know, that inevitable kind of hanging up the boots as well. It kind of came emotionally first more than kind of physically, when your body says, I've enough, like.
Yeah, you kind of preempted my next question, Claire, in terms of, I didn't ever see an official, you know, the headlines, Claire Egan announces retirement from intercounty football. It was kind of, I think you kind of mentioned somewhere in an interview in 2016 that this probably would be your last year at Mayo. But how difficult, and I'm going to give that question to Lorna as well in a minute, how difficult is it, and we hear, and having studied sport and exercise psychology previously, the void that's left, Claire, when everything that you're so used to and accustomed to, of course you were still playing with your club, but intercounty football, when that left you, how did you manage all that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And I suppose, like, I think I would say it comes in a lot of phases as well. Like, if you really strongly identify with playing for your county, you know, that can be a big thing that you have to kind of unravel and unpick that. And then being kind of part of a group, because I do think when you're part of a group, and Lorna can definitely be able to speak to this too, that are very kind of all on the same wavelength, really emotionally in tune, you know, that they're kind of arranging everything in their life for the pursuit of, you know, one single goal, whether it's like, invariably it should be an All-Ireland, but it could be a Connacht title or a Leinster title and then the All-Ireland as well. Like, it's very hard to kind of find that kind of dressing room, that close connection feeling again in other spheres. So I think sometimes I would miss that, because I finished with Carnacon as well in 2017 officially. I did play in 2018 for just one game at the time, but it has come in different phases. Like, I think when I finished with Mayo in 2016, I definitely was done. I think there's that emotional side of it where, you know, like, you know what, I've done my time, I've had a good innings. But then it can be hard to replace that kind of structure. So you have to try different things all the time to see, like, whether it's gym stuff or if it's running or triathlons or duathlons. So I probably got into a good bit of that. And then with Carnacon as well, I did have the extra kind of year or so, and I'd still be in touch with the group. But you do miss that kind of, especially it's summertime now. I know there's no football sadly at the moment, but you know, those long evenings, you know, I always think of Wednesday, Fridays, Sundays used to be kind of at that time with Mayo. But it takes time. But I'd say definitely I'm probably more used to it now and have a better structure in place maybe than I would have had in the beginning, or just allowing yourself now that, you know, you just go for a run for the enjoyment of just moving, as opposed to having your stopwatch set against you and kind of trying to get a time. Like, so I don't know if I answered it very well, but it does come in different layers, Jackie, definitely.
Yeah, no, you've answered it perfectly. And I remember watching you during that year when Carnacon won the All-Ireland the year later in 2017, and kind of marvelling at your levels of energy and ability to still get about the pitch, Claire. So it's a credit to you when you consider the background that you came from and that injury you described, to get back to that elite level with both club and county, I have to say. Lorna, in terms of managing life after football, how has it been for you? Obviously, you're a mum now and very, very busy, and I guess priorities have changed in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recognize what Claire is speaking about. I think like retirement differs for every player in the sense that, you know, some maybe an injury that happens and others maybe they're not picked or, you know, and for others then it's just kind of, well, for me, certainly I was kind of hanging on, you know, really wanting for that success to happen. And I kind of, you know, got to play with, say, the current group of players who are really striving and to get to an All Ireland, and obviously they got there last year with the likes of the Wards and Olivia Dively and the Leonards and all of those, and you know I could see that success coming through, and you know you're just enjoying it so much, and you're enjoying the fitness and the structure, and obviously I still had a lot of my own you know buddies that I played with throughout the years who were still playing, and so I probably kept playing, you know, for a lot of those reasons, knowing that maybe I wasn't as good as I had been before, maybe wasn't getting to the same levels, but willing to accept that just to kind of be able to, you know, keep offering what I could, and also getting to play with those players really honestly. And you know, so I suppose you have a couple of years where you're thinking about stopping, and you're as Claire said, you know, you're emotionally kind of getting to the acceptance levels of, okay, it's time to finish up. And then like Claire, I, you know, went back to the club, and luckily we had one, you know, a really successful year. We got to an intermediate club final, so with Clonbur, small club, and you know it was really great because I suppose I hadn't gotten to play as much with my club, and obviously we wouldn't have had the success of Carnacon, but you know I suppose with being in medicine and trying to study and you know training with Galway and obviously being on work placements all over the country, it was difficult to get to my club a lot of the time, and they were always so understanding. So to be able to give a good year and get to that success was great. And it was, you know, the manager that I had over the years, John Egan, he was selector, and my dad is actually the manager, and I was playing with my two sisters and two cousins as well, and my husband actually got involved. He's previous Galway footballer, so he was helping with the defence coaching, and my other cousin was helping with the forward coaching. So it was kind of a real family affair, and it was really great to be able to do that for a year. And then, yeah, as you said, kind of then like family planning took over, and I've had two little girls since then, and I actually played a bit of mothers and others in between. So I've moved to where my husband is from, Clannan Ladies Club. So I actually joined them this year. Then they were establishing a new team, and I said, sure, why not? I'll play a bit of junior. My body is still pretty slow and stiff and all the rest, but you know, I was just dying to get back playing. So I just said, why not? But then obviously the pandemic struck, so I hadn't been able to get to, one game is all I got to play actually. So but yeah, like I still love it, and hopefully, you know, I have two little girls, and I'll be involved in, you know, in some way, shape or form, and so I suppose you keep your links that way. And I'm still very friendly with a lot of the players that are playing now, and obviously our group that won 2004, you know, we've had reunions and all of that kind of thing. So you know, you keep all those links with you always, and it's just kind of an acceptance, isn't it? Life moves on and you move on, and I still have the interest there, but just obviously in different facets.
How are the girls, and how is Richie, Lorna, through all this? How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. We actually have his sister Niamh is living with us at the moment. So Niamh obviously played with us in 2004 as well, and she plays soccer with Liverpool at the moment. So
Yes,
she had to
correct.
move back.
Yeah.
So we're making the most of that, I'll tell you.
She's captain there, isn't she? She's captain over there, Lorna?
She's vice captain, yeah.
Vice captain.
Yeah, she's vice captain, yeah. So so she's like training full time, you know, literally they have their Zoom, Pilates and core, and they've got their programs, etc. So but yeah, so she's an extra pair of hands though when you have two smallies. So my older girl is almost 3, and then the baby is 16 months. So it is busy, you know. My husband's working full time. Richie is great now. He had a lot of injuries, so he had to finish football probably earlier than he would have liked. But like that, the interest is still there. We were watching the Sunday game, and you know, we're still tuning into all as much as we can. But yeah, everyone is good, and you know, reminiscing on all the good times as well during these kind of periods is great. It's great, like even watching all the interviews of all the rivals and all the great players of the past. It's been nice in that regard. You know, it's not something that maybe we would have got a chance to do before. So it's given us a chance to kind of reminisce, and you know, we were lucky to have some good times as well.
Absolutely. You might put in a word with Niamh for us. We'd love to catch up with her on one of these in the not too distant future as well, Lorna.
Well, if she's not too busy, you know, minding my kids, etc., I'll see what she says.
See if you can give her a half hour off. Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 13 All-Ireland titles between club and county. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, that's
So,
right. Yeah.
you know, a lucky 13 for you. If you could pick out one highlight from all of those, I know it's probably a tricky question to ask. I'm sure they were all special and unique in their own way, but was there any of them that meant more than others? I'm particularly thinking about, because it's so recent, that last one with Carnacon. I thought that meant an awful lot to you guys, but would I be on the right track there? Or does something
Yeah,
else stick out?
yeah, the club definitely, and I suppose for even more so now. Like obviously, sadly, Jimmy passed away as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But like a lot, Carnacon's success is incredible when you think of Jimmy, Lord mercy on him, started the club in '86, and basically he got a group together, and then what they went on to do. But 2017, yeah, that was special because we were up against Mourne as well, who are a top quality side. So I suppose for lots of reasons, and we'd had defeats before. But club wise, that one would definitely stand out. But from inter-county, I think 2003 against Dublin, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the first time Championship had quarterfinals. I think that they were introduced. I think in the past, usually if you won your provincial, or was there a round robin? There was extra games anyways as well in it. And I just think in 2003, like, we had a panel where I think there was something like 34 on the panel, and like A versus B games used to be absolutely fierce, so they were as well. So that one, I suppose, beating Dublin then in the All-Ireland final, because that, there'd be an intense rivalry there. That was, that stands out, like, and then 99 as well. Like, I'm after picking three there, but yeah, 99. The very first one, yeah, like, just that was kind of magical. It was pretty much a fairy tale. If you had wrote the script for it again, you just couldn't have really, like, against Waterford, like a team of kids basically up against Waterford, and that's where it all really started for us. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, it's been great. It's been great catching up with you, the two of you, Lorna and Claire. It's just we love kind of catching up with players from past years, and I think you might have seen a few of we had Monaghan and Laois and a few more on in recent times, and it's really, really nice to catch up with you, Claire, again. We know each other a few years, and Lorna, great to see you again, and I wish you both well in your respective fields. Claire doing great work in DCU, and Lorna Joyce in Oranmore in the medical centre there on the front line, Dr. Lorna Joyce. Folks, many thanks for taking the call this evening. I know it's busy times for us and strange times, but stay safe and stay well in regards to you both, and thank you once again.
Thanks for having us. Nice to see you.